Welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we really get into complex topics, pull out those essential insights, those surprising facts that help you feel genuinely well informed. So take a moment, just picture the global stage, these vast oceans, ships crisscrossing everywhere, silently moving everything, right? From the coffee you drank this morning to the phone in your pocket, it's just this immense, intricate dance. But have you ever really stopped to think, really think about what goes into getting stuff from A to B? It's so much more than just a boat on the water. The complexities hidden underneath, the huge investments, the incredible logistics, it's kind of mind blowing when you get into it. Okay, so let's unpack this. Today, we're doing a deep dive, a proper one, into the world of shipping and port management. We're really focusing on the investment side, how those decisions get made, and then how ships are actually bought and sold, the whole life cycle. And of course, the critical operational stuff that keeps them sailing safely, efficiently, day in, day out. Now, we've gone through a pretty comprehensive shipping and port management textbook, and we've really distilled it down. Pulled out the absolute must know insights. The aim here is to give you that vital foundational understanding, the bedrock of the industry. Our mission, like always, is to find those core nuggets of knowledge, give you those aha moments, and maybe connect some dots to the bigger picture. Because honestly, every little detail, it all adds up. It's all crucial to understanding how our global economy actually ticks. Have you ever wondered what really goes on when one of those massive ships changes owners? Or, like, the sheer effort involved in just maintaining them? Well, get ready. We think you'll find some of this genuinely eye opening. It's an industry that really underpins almost everything.
It absolutely is. And it operates with its own rhythm, its own language almost. These aren't just details we're talking about. They're fundamental pillars for global trade. I'm going to walk you through the whole life cycle, the finances. It's pretty sophisticated stuff. You'll quickly see that the shipping news you might catch glimpses of, that's just the very, very tip of the iceberg, a really deep, complex iceberg. Navigating ship sales and ownership, the life cycle of a vessel.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning, maybe, or at least a major beginning in a ship's life. If someone wants to acquire a vessel, maybe they're new to the game, or maybe an established player just expanding. There's that first big decision, right? Do you go for a shiny new one straight from the shipyard, or do you dip into that market for pre-owned ships, which I imagine is pretty active?
That's spot on. And it's rarely a simple either. What's really interesting is how the market breaks down. We can generally talk about four distinct categories of ship sales. Each one has different drivers behind it, and they often reflect what's happening in the wider market. So first up, the most straightforward, new building. Exactly what it sounds like. You place an order, get a brand new vessel built just for you directly from a shipyard.
And why would someone do that, apart from wanting something new, I guess?
Well, often it's because they have very specific needs. Maybe a unique cargo type that needs a special design, or maybe they need to navigate tricky shallow waters. Or they might be chasing the absolute latest tech for fuel efficiency that can mean huge savings long term. Or maybe meeting the newest environmental regulations, kind of future-proofing their fleet. It's really about tailoring the asset precisely, getting exactly what fits their strategy, often after years of planning. Then there's a slight variation, which is interesting, the resale of a new building.
Okay, how does that work?
This is when a ship's been ordered, but it gets sold before it's actually delivered, or sometimes very shortly after it leaves the yard.
Why would that happen? Seems odd to order a ship and then sell it straight away.
Yeah, it does, but think about how fast the maritime market can change. It's incredibly cyclical. Maybe demand for the cargo it was built for suddenly drops off, or the original owner's business strategy shifts, and that ship just doesn't fit anymore. Sometimes, frankly, it's a speculative play. Someone orders a ship, anticipates prices for new ones will rise, and then sells the slot or the just delivered ship for a quick profit. It happens. It's about responding to change or seizing an opportunity. Okay, third category, and this is probably the busiest part of the market. Secondhand vessels sold for further trading.
Right. The used ship market.
Exactly. This is where operational ships, ships that have already been working for years, get bought and sold to continue their careers under new owners. Think used cars, but, massive scale, much higher stakes. Lots of factors influence these sales. Obviously, the ship's age, its physical condition, its maintenance record, huge, and critically, the current market demand for that type of vessel, like a well-maintained, older bulk carrier that can still fetch a good price if demand for ore or grain is booming. How it's lived its life really matters here. And finally, the end of the line. Secondhand vessels sold for scrap. The ship graveyard. Pretty much. This marks the end of its useful economic life. The decision is almost always economic. When the costs of keeping it running, maintenance, repairs, crucial upgrades, especially to meet new regulations, just outweigh what it can earn. Modern environmental rules, things like emissions, ballast water treatment, they play a huge role now. Older ships that aren't compliant, they just become too expensive to upgrade compared to their remaining life or earning potential. A stark reminder, really, that even these steel giants don't last forever.
That's a really clear picture of the different ways ships change hands. But you mentioned lifespan. Okay, this is where I find it really interesting. How long do these things actually last? I mean, they seem built to last forever, but it's quite specific, isn't it?
It is, and it's a common thought, but yeah, their lifespan is far from uniform. It really depends heavily on a few key things that are all linked. First, the type of ship. A tanker has different stresses than, say, a container ship.
Yeah.
Second, the yard where it was built. That tells you a lot about the quality of the construction, the materials, the standards. And third, really important, is the trade, where it's been employed. A ship battling North Atlantic storms and ice constantly. That's going to wear differently than one in a calmer tropical route. Makes sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So can you give us some numbers, like rough figures?
Sure. And these are useful for context, especially for, understanding the variations. Specialized ships like reefer vessels, the refrigerated ones for fruit, meat, that kind of thing. They might typically last around 30 years before scrapping. The refrigeration systems are complex and under constant load. But then you look at cruise and passenger ships. Because of the incredibly high safety standards, the constant focus on passenger comfort, and the fact that they often get major, expensive refits every few years. They can reach 40, even 50 years.
Wow, 30 versus 50, that's a massive difference. What makes a cruise ship last so much longer than a reefer? Is it just the cargo or more to it?
It's definitely more to it. Cruise ships are built for people, right? So safety, comfort, aesthetics are paramount. That means much stricter, often legally mandated maintenance regimes, regular dry docking, thorough inspections, big refurbishments. Plus, their operational stresses are different. They're not carrying heavy, potentially corrosive cargo. Their routes are often planned to avoid the absolute worst weather, if possible. Reefers, on the other hand, have those energy-hungry cooling systems running constantly, different stresses on the structure, but across all types, the quality of the build from the start, and a really consistent, good maintenance plan throughout its life. Those are absolutely key. It's about continuous care.
Got it. Okay, now let's clarify something fundamental, something people outside the industry often mix up, but it's crucial inside. Ship owner versus cargo owner, not the same thing, right?
Not at all. Two very distinct roles, distinct responsibilities, distinct liabilities. A ship owner that's an individual, or more likely, a company, operates a vessel they either own outright or have leased. Their main jobs are huge. Hire the captain and crew, ensure the ship is seaworthy, manage all its operations, technically and commercially, and crucially, they bear the financial risk of the asset itself. And, important point, the ship owner might be the legal title holder, or they could be acting on the owner's behalf, maybe through something like a bareboat charter. They're the guardians of the ship itself. The cargo owner, on the other hand, is just, well, the owner of the goods being shipped. Simple as that. This could be lots of different people or companies along the chain: shippers, consignees, their agents. But what's really important to remember is that this does not include the Port Authority. The Port Authority runs the port, the docks, cranes, channels. They facilitate trade, but they don't own the actual coffee beans or car parts being loaded onto a ship in their port.
Right. Okay, so ships are these massive assets worth millions. Their value must fluctuate, right? So when does a ship become less about carrying stuff and more like a commodity itself, something to be traded based on its own value?
Exactly. And this leads to a really fascinating dynamic in the market, the rise of what we call asset traders. It's this intriguing thing where a ship's market value can actually go up quite a bit, sometimes after just 2 or 3 years of operation.
Wait, it gets more valuable after being used. How does that work?
It sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? But it's not usually because the ship itself has somehow improved. It's more about the market. Changes in demand for that ship type, shifts in the cost and availability of new ships from shipyards. The basic supply-demand balance. If suddenly everyone wants tankers and the shipyards are full for the next 3 years, the value of relatively new tankers already sailing, that value can surge.
Okay. And this creates an opening for a certain kind of player then? Someone maybe less focused on the day-to-day shipping operations?
Precisely. This market volatility creates this niche, this opportunity for asset traders. These are ship owners, yes, but their primary focus isn't necessarily the profit from carrying cargo day to day. It's the market movement itself. Their strategy is basically buy ships, hold them for a relatively short time, maybe a few years, and then sell them on for a profit when the market value has hopefully increased. They're essentially financial players in the ship market, highly attuned to market cycles, economic indicators, and that psychology of the market, what other players are thinking and doing. It's like trading stocks, but the stock is a $100 million vessel. High stakes game. The art and science of shipping investment, making smart choices.
Okay, so we've talked ownership, sales, asset trading. Let's get into the financial heart of it. How do investors actually decide, yes, putting money into this ship or this fleet is a good idea? We're talking huge sums here. It can't just be a hunch, surely.
Oh, definitely not. A hunch with that kind of capital involved. That'd be brave. No, it's a very rigorous process called investment appraisal. And this isn't just a quick look. It's a really deep analysis looking at the potential profitability over the entire life of the asset. Decades, potentially. But it's not just profit. It also looks hard at affordability. And critically, how does this investment fit strategically? Does it align with the investor's overall business, the people putting up the money banks, financial institutions, private equity, wealthy individuals? They all expect one thing: a reasonable rate of return on that very significant investment. So the decision makers, they rely heavily on long-term experience in these notoriously cyclical shipping markets. They compare loads of factors, future demand and supply forecasts for specific ship types, and maybe just as important, they try to read that psychology of the market. Sentiment can drive prices way up or down, sometimes almost regardless of the immediate facts.
So what does this investment appraisal actually look like day to day? Is it spreadsheets and calculators, or is there still room for that market savvy, that intuition?
It's a mix, really. You absolutely have teams of analysts, financial experts, maritime economists, maybe even naval architects building these incredibly detailed financial models. Spreadsheets are definitely involved. But at its absolute core, the principle is instinctive, right?
Yeah.
You spend money now.
Expecting to get more back later.
Exactly. Spend now, hope for more later. And these future financial events, they get meticulously broken down. You've got cash inflows, that's the money coming in. Freight payments, charter hire payments, maybe the ship's sale value at the very end. And then you've got cash outflows, all the costs. The initial purchase price, obviously, loan repayments if you borrowed money, all the ongoing operating costs, crew, maintenance, insurance, plus repairs, upgrades. The net result of all those projected inflows and outflows over the ship's entire life. That's what tells you if the investment looks viable. It's all about forecasting, which is always tricky in shipping.
Right. So, okay, an investor takes the plunge. They buy a ship. It doesn't just sit there generating cash by itself. How does it actually earn its keep? Are there different ways ships get employed?
Absolutely. Getting the ship is just the first step. The next big decision is how to employ it to make money. There are generally four main ways, each with different contracts, different responsibilities, different ways revenue comes in. You've got liner service or liner terms, voyage charter, and time charter. Now, while they all exist and have their place for really understanding how most ships earn money, the two most important types of employment are voyage charter and time charter. They're really the backbone for a huge chunk of the industry. Understanding these two is key.
Okay, let's dive into those two then, voyage and time charter. Can you break them down for us, maybe with some practical examples? Paint a picture.
Sure. Let's start with voyage charter. Think of this as hiring the ship for a single trip. The owner agrees to transport a specific cargo, say, from port A to port B, for one voyage. In return, the owner gets paid freight, usually based on the amount of cargo carried, so per ton typically. Crucially, under a voyage charter, the ship owner pays for pretty much everything. All the regular operating costs, crew, maintenance, insurance, plus all the costs specific to that voyage, like fuel, we call it bunkers, any canal tolls, port fees.
So, like shipping a load of coal from Australia to Japan.
Exactly like that. A bulk carrier takes that specific load, delivers it, gets paid per ton of coal. The owner covers all the running and voyage costs for that trip. Now, time charter is quite different. Here, the owner basically rents out the whole vessel for a set period. Could be months, could be a year, sometimes even longer. In this case, the charterer, the person renting the ship, pays for the voyage costs. That includes the fuel, the port charges, canal fees, because they are deciding where the ship goes and when during that time period.
Okay, so the renter directs the ship.
Yes. But the ship owner still covers the vessel's basic operating costs, the crew, the maintenance, the insurance. Those ongoing costs remain the owner's responsibility. A classic example, maybe a big oil company time chartering a tanker for a year. They use it to move crude oil around the world wherever their supply chain needs it. They direct the voyages and pay for the fuel and port calls for those voyages. And the payment for a time charter is usually a fixed daily hire rate, paid to the owner regardless of how much cargo is moved or how many trips are done within that rental period. It gives the owner a predictable income stream, but they have less direct control over the ship's day-to-day journeys.
Got it. Okay, so if you're an investor looking at a ship, you're not just guessing. You mentioned this fundamental analysis. What are the actual concrete methods, the tools investors use to figure out if a shipping investment makes sense?
Right, this is where we move beyond the gut feeling and into the data-driven side. Fundamental analysis in shipping is complex, and smart investors almost always use a combination of these methods. Relying on just one can be misleading. There are about 10 key criteria that together give a pretty comprehensive view. First, you've got the price-cash flow ratio. Simple calculation. Cost of the ship divided by its expected cash flow in the first year.
What does that tell you, quickly?
It's like a quick pulse check. How many years of immediate earnings does it take to cover the purchase price? A high ratio might mean a long payback, or maybe it suggests the market expects earnings to improve significantly later. Second, related to that, is the payback period. Literally, how many years does it take for the ship's cumulative earnings to equal the original investment? It's all about liquidity, how fast you get your initial cash back, important in volatile markets. Third, there's the capital recovery factor. Now, this one's straightforward conceptually and important to note. It's simply the inverse of the price-cash flow ratio we just discussed. They're two sides of the same coin, basically.
Okay, inverse of price cash flow. Got it.
Fourth, a real cornerstone of finance, net present value, or NPV. This is super important because it considers the time value of money. A dollar today is worth more than a dollar promised next year, right?
Right. Inflation, risk.
Exactly. So NPV calculates the present value of all the expected future cash flows, inflows, minus outflows, discounted back to today's value, using an appropriate discount rate reflecting risk, and then you subtract the initial investment cost. A positive NPV generally means the project is expected to generate more value than it costs. It's a core profitability measure. Fifth is the straightforward rate of return. Basically, what's the average annual profit as a percentage of the ship's price? You typically estimate the total profit over the ship's life, divide by the number of years it's expected to operate, and express that as a percentage of the initial cost. Sixth, another key profitability metric, internal rate of return, the IRR. This one's a bit more technical. It's the discount rate at which the NPV of the project becomes exactly zero.
So break-even interest rate, kind of.
Yeah, you can think of it that way. It's the effective rate of return the investment is expected to yield. Investors compare the IRR to their own cost of capital or required rate of return. If the IRR is higher, the project looks attractive. Seventh, and this is absolutely vital for just running the ship day to day, break-even rates. These are the minimum daily rates, either charter hire or freight rates, that the ship must earn just to cover its cash costs. That means running costs like crew and maintenance, plus interest on any loans, plus loan principal repayments. Knowing this tells you the minimum market level needed to not lose money. Eighth, slightly different, are the necessary rates. These aren't just break-even, they're the rates needed to achieve a specific target return on the investment, either on the total capital invested or maybe just on the owner's equity portion. This helps investors see if the market conditions can actually support their profit goals. Ninth is accumulated cash flow. This tracks how much capital is tied up in the vessel over its life. It's important for managing cash flow across a company with multiple assets, understanding your capital exposure at any given time.
And finally, number 10, required residual values. This calculation tells an investor what they'd need to sell the ship for at various points in the future, say after 5 years or 10 years, to still achieve their desired overall return on the investment. It helps evaluate exit strategies and the importance of the final sale price in the total return picture. And just to clarify, whenever we talk about returns or profits in these calculations, it's always understood to be the net profit after taxes have been accounted for.
That's quite a list. It's amazing how they look at it from so many different angles: profitability, risk, cash flow, exit strategy. It's clearly not just one magic number. But I wonder, with so many metrics, does it ever lead to analysis paralysis, or maybe give a false sense of certainty in a market that's famously unpredictable?
That's a really insightful question. And yes, absolutely it can. Relying only on the numbers without layering on experience and market intuition, that can definitely lead to paralysis, or worse, misplaced confidence. That psychology of the market we talked about. You can't easily plug that into a spreadsheet. Experienced investors, they use these metrics as essential tools, like a map. But they also know how to read the weather, the currents, the human factors, the sentiment shifts. So yes, you build the robust financial models, but you also need the wisdom to interpret them in the real-world context, which is often, frankly, irrational. Sometimes a decision based partly on experienced intuition about a market turn can outperform a purely numbers-based one. But it's always, or should be, an informed intuition backed by the analysis. It's both art and science. 3. Fueling the fleet, financing ships.
Okay, so we know how to analyze a ship investment, but the next giant hurdle is always paying for it. How do these massive multi-million-dollar purchases actually get funded? Let's move from the analysis to the practicalities of finance. It starts with a basic measure, right?
It does. The absolute bedrock for understanding ship finance, really, any business with operating assets, is cash flow from operations. This is simply the cash generated by the ship after you've paid all the voyage costs, fuel, port fees, and all the operating costs, crew, maintenance, insurance. It's the operational profit left over. This cash is what's available to pay back loans, fund future buys, or give returns to the owners, the equity holders. It's the lifeblood. Without positive cash flow from operations, you're in trouble fast.
Okay, let's get down to brass tacks then. How does a ship owner actually write the check for, say, a $15 million vessel or a $100 million supertanker? What are the two basic paths?
Fundamentally, it boils down to two main routes: equity and debt financing. If an owner buys that $15 million ship using entirely their own money cash they have, or money raised directly from investors without taking out a loan that's equity. And here's a key point, especially for comparisons. An owner who funds entirely through equity has no capital costs in the sense of interest payments on loans. They avoid that expense. Of course, there's still an opportunity cost for using their own cash, but no monthly interest check to the bank. They bear all the risk, but they also get all the potential upside. The alternative, naturally, is debt financing, borrowing money from someone else, banks, financial institutions, to cover some or all of the ship's cost. Now, within debt financing, there are lots of options, but the source material highlights two main methods that are very common in shipping.
And what are those two main debt routes?
The first is traditional first mortgage finance. This is very standard. It's a secured loan where the ship itself acts as collateral. If the owner defaults, the lender can seize the ship and sell it to get their money back, just like a mortgage on a house, but bigger. The second main one is shipbuilder credit. This is financing offered directly by the shipyard that's building the vessel.
Ah, so the builder helps finance the purchase.
Exactly. They often do this to help make the sale happen, especially in competitive markets. It can sometimes come with terms that are maybe more flexible than a traditional bank loan, making it attractive for the buyer.
But finance is never usually that simple, is it? Are there other ways, maybe more creative or complex ways, to fund these massive assets beyond just a mortgage or builder credit?
Oh, absolutely. Ship finance is incredibly sophisticated, always evolving. Owners and financiers get very creative to manage risk, optimize taxes, or structure deals in specific ways. So, beyond those two main ones, you see things like corporate borrowing, where a big company borrows based on its overall strength, not just against the single ship. You have operational leases, basically, just renting the ship long term, often keeping it off the lessee's balance sheet. Then there are tax leases, structured specifically to maximize tax advantages for both parties. Bareboat leases, where the lessee takes on almost all the responsibilities of ownership for the lease period, including crewing and maintenance. You also see secured equity financing, which kind of blends debt and equity features, and mezzanine finance, that's a hybrid layer, riskier than senior debt but safer than pure equity. This whole range just shows how adaptable the industry is in funding these huge capital needs. Owners can really try to tailor the financing to fit their specific strategy and risk appetite.
Which raises a big question, doesn't it? For any ship owner juggling these options, equity, different debts, leases, how do they find the right balance? How do you manage risk, optimize costs, and maximize returns in such a volatile, capital-heavy business? It sounds like walking a tightrope.
It really is a constant strategic balancing act. The right mix of equity and debt and the specific types of debt depends hugely on the owner's situation. How strong are their finances already? What's their view on where the market is heading? How much risk are they comfortable with? What are current interest rates? An owner with deep pockets might prefer less debt to avoid interest risk. A company focused on rapid growth might use more leverage, more debt, to expand faster. The goal is always finding that sweet spot, the most cost-effective way to fund the business strategy without taking on so much debt that a market downturn could sink them. It's crucial. 4V, the linchpin, understanding bills of lading and disputes.
Okay, let's change tack completely now. Let's talk about something that might seem like just paperwork. But it's absolutely fundamental to shipping, to trade, and especially to sorting out problems, the bill of lading.
Yeah, the bill of lading, or BL. It looks like a receipt, and it is a receipt for goods received or loaded onto a ship, but it's so much more. Crucially, it's strong evidence of the contract between the shipper, the person sending the goods, and the carrier, the company transporting them. It lays out the terms, and critically, in most cases, it's a document of title. Whoever holds the original legitimate BL usually has the legal right to claim those goods at the destination. It's the key that unlocks the cargo, legally speaking. Its role in international trade in finance is immense.
So what happens if the goods show up for loading and they're not perfect? Maybe the boxes are damaged or something looks off. It can't always be pristine, right?
No, absolutely not. It happens all the time. If cargo arrives and it's clearly not in apparent good order and condition, that's the standard phrase. Maybe it's damaged, maybe it looks defective. The master of the ship, the captain, has basically two options. First, if the damage is really bad or makes it unsafe or unsuitable to transport, they can simply reject the goods, refuse to load them. The second, and often more common path, is to accept the goods but issue a claused bill of lading.
Clause, what does that mean?
It means they add a note, a clause, to the BL describing the problem. Cartons crushed, barrels leaking, steel slightly rusted, whatever the issue is. This makes it crystal clear that the cargo was not in perfect shape before it came onto the ship. This protects the carrier. If the cargo arrives damaged at the other end, the carrier can point to the claused BL and say, look, it was already like that when we got it. And on that specific point of noting damage, especially rust, the P&I clubs will get to them, give very specific advice. They say remarks like extremely rusty or superficially rusty should never be used.
Why not? Seems descriptive.
Too subjective. What's extreme rust to one person might be superficial to another. It creates ambiguity, opens the door for arguments and big claims later about when the rusting actually happened or got worse. The advice is always to be factual and precise. Avoid vague judgments. Stick to observable facts.
You mentioned P&I clubs again. You said they were a safety net. Can you explain exactly what they are and why they're so vital for ship owners?
Right. P&I Club stands for Protection and Indemnity Club. Think of it as specialized, very comprehensive insurance for ship owner. They're usually nonprofit mutual associations. The members, the ship owners, are also the owners of the club, pooling their risks together. What they cover is crucial. Liabilities that standard ship insurance like hull insurance often doesn't cover. Things like injury or death to crew or passengers, damage to other ships or docks, pollution incidents, wreck removal costs, the really big complex liability claims. Essentially, it's the policy owners buy to protect themselves against claims from third parties, people, property, the environment. In today's world, operating without P&I cover is practically unthinkable. It's absolutely indispensable.
Okay, so if a bill of lading does get claused, as you put it, because of an issue with the cargo, it gets a special name, right? It's not a clean bill of lading anymore.
Exactly. If it has any clauses noting defects or damage or quantity discrepancies, it's known as a claused bill of lading. And informally, in the industry, it's often called a dirty or foul bill of lading. It immediately signals to anyone looking at it, banks, buyers, that there was some issue with the goods or their packaging before or during loading. It's a red flag.
Got it. Dirty BL. Now, what about risk related to the voyage itself, say sailing through a pirate zone or an area known for terrible storms? Is there a document for that?
Yes. That's where something called a letter of indemnity, LOI, often comes in. It's sometimes called a back letter. In shipping, if goods are going via a route considered particularly dangerous, the carrier might ask the shipper for an LOI. If the shipper provides it, it essentially says, okay, we accept the extra risk of this dangerous route. End quote. The crucial consequence. If the carrier has this LOI and damage does occur due to the specified danger, like piracy or storm damage on that route, the carrier will generally not be liable. The risk is effectively transferred back to the shipper or the cargo owner who provided the LOI. More generally, an LOI is a legal promise. One party agrees to protect another party from specific financial losses or damages, often if certain contractual terms are breached or specific risky actions are taken. It's like a targeted private insurance agreement between two parties for a particular scenario.
Okay, quick clarification on terms. Ship loading versus shore loading, they sound really similar. What's the difference?
Good question. Easy to confuse. Ship loading is the actual physical act of putting the cargo onto the ship, using cranes for containers, conveyor belts for bulk, pumps for liquids. Whatever the method, it's cargo going aboard. Shore loading, on the other hand, is broader. It refers to the landside activities involved in getting cargo to or from the ship at the port, arranging trucks or trains, storing cargo in the terminal, managing the flow of goods on the quay before they get lifted onto the vessel or after they come off. So ship loading is on the vessel. Shore loading is the portside logistics supporting it.
Makes sense. And another term, master. We hear the master did this, the master decided that. Does that always mean the captain?
Usually, yes. In most contexts, master refers to the captain or commander of the ship, the person with ultimate authority and responsibility on board. However, there's another meaning. It can also refer to a shipping master, who is an official based in the port. They handle administrative tasks like issuing seaman service books, kind of like logbooks or passports for sailors, and granting port clearance, the official permission for a ship to sail. So context is key to know if you're talking about the person commanding the ship or the port official.
Right. And the master, the captain, faces some really tricky situations with bills of lading, doesn't he? Where their decision has big legal and financial implications. What are some common scenarios?
Oh, absolutely. The master's signature on that BL carries huge weight. Let's run through a few common, sometimes thorny situations. First, using a charterer's bill of lading. Sometimes the charterer, not the ship owner, provides the BL form. If that happens, the master needs to ensure the charterer has verified that the BL incorporates the terms of the Hague Rules, or similar rules like Hague-Visby.
Those are the international rules on carrier liability.
Exactly. They set out standard responsibilities and liability limits. Making sure they're included is a basic legal protection for the carrier. Okay, next. Discrepancy in the number of original bills. Say the BL says 3 originals issued, but the agent only presents 2 for signing, or the number written doesn't match the number presented. Red flag. Master's actions. First, try to find out why there's a difference. Second, immediately call the P&I club correspondent, that local representative, their insurer. Third, crucially, refuse to sign until the correct number is shown and presented. This prevents potential fraud where extra negotiable copies could circulate. What if the shipper asks for 2 or more sets of original bills?
It sounds suspicious.
Not always. It can be perfectly legitimate. Maybe there's more than one shipper involved, each needing their own set, or the cargo is going to multiple consignees, or maybe one shipper is sending different types or grades of cargo under one shipment, needing separate docks. The master needs to understand the reason, but multiple sets can be okay in the right circumstances. Now, a tricky one. Bill of lading in an incomprehensible language or alphabet. The master is presented with a document they literally cannot read.
What do they do? Sign it anyway.
Absolutely not. First step, try to get it translated by an independent, trusted third party right there in the port. If that's impossible, no reliable translator available quickly, the master should actually prepare their own BL in English, based on the facts of the shipment as they know them, and sign that instead, possibly alongside the foreign one, but noting they don't understand it. Never sign something you can't read. Even riskier, being asked to sign blank or partially completed bills of lading.
Huge red flag, surely.
Massive. The potential for fraud is enormous. Details could be filled in later completely differently. In all such cases, the master must contact the P&I club correspondent immediately for advice. The default answer should be a firm no.
That's a minefield. Is there any procedure that seems efficient but actually carries huge risks for the carrier?
Yes, the Early Departure Procedure System, EDP. It sounds good. Lets the ship leave the terminal faster, sometimes before the final BL is issued, maybe even before the exact cargo quantity is confirmed.
How does that even work?
Well, typically the BLs are prepared before loading is finished, maybe using the shipper's estimated quantity. The agent gets the master to sign these provisional BLs. Then the agent gives the documents to the shipper, who sends them on to the buyer, all while the ship might still be loading or has just sailed.
And the risk is?
Huge.
Huh.
What if the final quantity loaded is less than stated? Or what if damage occurs during that last bit of loading after the BL was signed? The carrier has signed a document that might not reflect the final reality, leaving them wide open to claims. It trades speed for significant risk.
Okay, to really nail this down, let's define 2 key roles again, clearly. Carrier and shipper.
Essential distinction. The carrier is the company or person who actually transports the goods by sea, air, land. They're the ones performing the carriage under the contract. The shipper is the person or company sending the goods, also often called the consignor. They're typically the supplier or owner of the stuff being shipped. And when we talk about shipper's figures, those are the details, quantity, weight, etc., that the shipper provides to the carrier to put on the BL. The carrier generally relies on these figures, but the master has the right to clause them if they observe discrepancies during loading. Okay, back to the master's dilemmas. What if they're asked to reissue or amend a BL that's already been signed and issued? Maybe the shipper made a mistake or wants to change the destination. The rule here is absolute. The master should never agree to this without the explicit consent of the P&I club correspondent. Altering a BL after issuance can have massive legal consequences, potentially facilitating fraud or voiding insurance. Get the club's approval first, always. Another really serious one, being asked to predate or postdate the BL. Meaning put a date on it that isn't the actual date loading was completed.
Why would someone ask for that?
Often linked to finance, specifically letters of credit, LCs. LCs are bank guarantees used in trade, but they have strict conditions. often including a latest shipment date. If the shipper misses the deadline, they might pressure the master to put an earlier date on the BL so they can still get paid by the bank under the LC.
And the problem is?
Banks check dates meticulously. If the BL date is found to be false, the bank will refuse payment. It can cause huge financial fallout and accusations of fraud. So the rule is ironclad. A shipped BL must always be dated for the actual date of loading, or the date loading was completed, no exceptions. Accuracy is paramount. Okay, one last common scenario, especially in the tanker trade.
Yeah.
Delivery of cargo without the original bill of landing.
How does that happen?
Oil cargoes often get bought and sold multiple times while the ship is still at sea. The paperwork, the original BL, just can't keep up and physically reach the discharge port before the ship does. So the ship arrives, the receiver wants the oil, but they don't have the original BL to prove ownership. What happens then? If it seems like a genuine delay, and not that the BL is lost or stolen, the ship owner might agree to deliver the cargo, but only with their P&I Club's agreement, and critically, only after the receiver signs an acceptable letter of indemnity, LOI. That LOI, as we discussed, protects the ship owner. If the real BL holder shows up later and claims the cargo was wrongly delivered, the owner is covered by the indemnity provided by the receiver who took the cargo without the BL. It's still risky, done only with caution and proper security. V, keeping ships shipshape. Repair and maintenance strategies.
Right, so the ship is built, financed, sailing, dealing with all that BL complexity. But how do you keep these massive machines running for decades? In harsh conditions, it can't just be fixing things when they break, right? There must be a strategy.
Oh, absolutely. Reactive fixing is the worst case scenario. Proper upkeep is strategic, planned, and ongoing. And to really get it, we need to be clear on three distinct terms that often get muddled: repair, rehabilitation, and maintenance. First, repair. This is specific. It's modifying a part of the ship, maybe partly or wholly, because it's damaged. Either it looks bad or, more importantly, its serviceability is compromised. Something is broken or worn out, and you're fixing that specific problem. Second, rehabilitation. This is about bringing a structure or system back up to a service level it used to have, but has lost over time. It's more than just patching. It might involve upgrading older components to restore performance or meet standards it once met, bringing back closer to a previous better state. And third, the big one, maintenance. This is the whole ongoing process of keeping the vessel in good, serviceable condition. It includes preventing damage in the first place, repairing defects as they arise, and sometimes strengthening things to handle future stresses. It's the continuous care, the proactive stuff, the checkups, the scheduled overhauls, hugely important.
Okay, let's focus on steel ships, which are most of them. What does steel ship repair actually involve day to day? It sounds like a massive undertaking.
It is. It's a highly specialized industry. It means regularly inspecting all the key systems, hull, machinery, electrics, navigation, everything, and then doing the necessary work to keep them in optimal, safe condition. The business side requires incredible coordination owner, shipyards, suppliers worldwide, often under tight deadlines. Getting repair contracts usually involves an aggressive bidding process. The customers, big ones, national navies, all kinds of commercial ship owners, even owners of other big marine structures like oil rigs or offshore wind platforms. And the contracts themselves come in different flavors. You hear acronyms like FFP, firm fixed price, cost agreed up front, FFPAF, firm fixed price award fee, fixed price plus a potential bonus, CPFS, cost plus fixed fee, owner covers cost plus pays a set fee, and CPAF, cost plus award fee, costs plus a fee that varies based on performance.
So the shipyard bids for these jobs.
Yep. They get a request for proposal, RFP, or an invitation for bid, IFB. And interestingly, it's not always the lowest price that wins. Turnaround time, specialized skills, track record tabler can be just as important. The bids themselves are detailed. Worker hours, wage rates, materials, special services, all estimated meticulously.
And what kind of work are we talking about? What are the common repair tasks?
A huge range. Lots of blasting and repainting, hull, decks, tanks vital for stopping corrosion, major machinery rebuilding engines, generators, systems overhauls hydraulics, ventilation, electronics, sometimes installing completely new systems, maybe new environmental tech or upgraded navigation gear, also things like propeller and rudder repairs or modifications, even sometimes creating new machinery spaces inside the ship during a major refit. And a key thing to remember, often these repair jobs are emergencies. A breakdown happens, damage occurs, there's very little warning. So ship repair yards have to be incredibly flexible and fast-moving. It's an unpredictable environment.
So beyond just fixing broken stuff, there's a more strategic way to think about maintenance, isn't there? It's planned, proactive.
Absolutely. A proper maintenance plan has clear objectives. The main goals are usually get the work done in the least possible time with the utmost efficiency and at the optimum cost. Minimize that expensive downtime. Plus, a huge driver is compliance. The plan must address requirements laid out in the International Safety Management Code, ISM. That's the global standard for safe ship operation and pollution prevention. Safety and compliance are paramount. The actual maintenance process often follows a cycle. You identify a problem or potential problem, establish the cause, propose a solution, evaluate if that solution is good, practical, cost-effective, implement it. Then, crucially, evaluate its effectiveness. Did it actually fix the problem? And finally, solve it. Close the loop. It's a continuous improvement cycle. And the detailed procedures get very specific. They establish maintenance intervals, how often to check something, define the methods and frequency of inspections, specify the type of inspection, visual, ultrasound, vibration analysis, list the measuring equipment needed, set clear acceptance criteria, what's acceptable where, what requires action, assign responsibility to qualified people, and define clear reporting methods so everyone knows what was found and what was done. It's very methodical.
Sounds incredibly thorough. Are there different sort of philosophies or overall approaches to how companies tackle maintenance, like proactive versus reactive?
Yes, exactly. We can group the main approaches into three categories: preventive, predictive, and reactive. Preventive maintenance is proactive. It's about keeping things working and stopping failures before they happen. Think routine inspections, scheduled overhauls based on time or running hours, replacing parts before they fail, like changing the oil in your car at set intervals. The goal is to catch potential issues early. Predictive maintenance takes proactive a step further, using technology. You put sensors on critical equipment engines, generators, pumps. These sensors collect data in real-time vibration, temperature, pressure. And then, often using AI and algorithms, you analyze that data constantly. The system looks for tiny changes, subtle patterns that indicate a potential problem is developing, long before it would be obvious or cause a failure.
So you can fix it just before it breaks.
Precisely. It lets you schedule maintenance exactly when it's needed, not just based on a fixed calendar. This can massively reduce costs, improve safety by catching things early, and boost ship availability by minimizing unexpected breakdowns. It's really the cutting edge, integrating tech like AI. And the third approach is reactive maintenance, also known bluntly as breakdown maintenance. This is fixing things after they've already broken down or failed.
The least desirable option.
By far. While sometimes unavoidable, relying mainly on reactive maintenance is usually inefficient, disruptive, and much more expensive in the long run. Emergency repairs, vessel downtime, potential knock-on damage is generally a sign of poor planning.
Okay, so with these different approaches, what are the ultimate aims? What are the ideals that a really good comprehensive maintenance strategy strives for?
A top-tier maintenance strategy aims for 8 key ideals. First, obviously, ensure safe systems. Safety for crew, cargo, environment is non-negotiable. Second, maintain design intent. Keep the ship operating as it was designed to. Third, be affordable. Find that cost-effective balance. Fourth, produce reliability. The ship needs to be dependable. Fifth, produce availability. It needs to be ready to sail and earn money. Sixth, be sustainable. Consider long-term environmental and operational impact. Seventh, be holistic. Look at the whole ship as an integrated system. And eighth, be integrated maintenance needs to work smoothly with all other parts of the company's operations. Hitting all 8 is the goal. 6, the backbone, materials management and shipping. All right, one last piece of the operational puzzle.
No.
We've talked about keeping the ship running, but what about getting all the necessary stuff to the ship? Spare parts, components, supplies. It's not just about the work done on board or in dry dock, is it? A whole landside support system must be huge.
Absolutely crucial. That's where materials management comes in. It might seem behind the scenes, but it's the backbone, the main goal. Simple. Provide an unbroken, seamless chain of components and supplies needed for production or operation. Whether it's parts for routine maintenance, spares for emergency repairs, or even just food and provisions for the crew, materials management makes sure it gets there on time. The materials department in a shipping company or shipyard has a massive task. They plan what's needed, they deal with suppliers all over the world, they arrange the transport, making sure the right parts get to the right place, on the right ship or to the right yard, using the right transport method, exactly when needed. It's a global logistics ballet, and it covers a lot of ground. Careful handling of sensitive parts, sophisticated inventory management, balancing stock levels to avoid shortages but also avoid tying up too much cash, detailed planning and scheduling, efficient procurement and receiving, finding suppliers, checking quality, constant monitoring and tracking of shipments across the globe, and rigorous controlling of the whole process to keep costs down and ensure everything flows smoothly. And like everything else, it's evolving. New techniques, new technologies, digitalization, better analytics are constantly being used to make materials management more efficient and cost-effective. trying to get closer to that just-in-time ideal, even with global supply chains.
So, stepping back, it really highlights the interconnectedness, doesn't it? It's not just the ship, not just the port, but this vast network on land, ensuring that a tiny spare part ordered in one country gets installed correctly on an engine in a port halfway around the world, keeping global trade moving. It's quite incredible.
It really is an unseen, complex network enabling the very visible work of global shipping. Without that efficient flow of materials, even the most advanced ship would grind to a halt pretty quickly. Outro.
Wow. Okay, what a journey. We've really covered some ground today. From how ships are bought and sold, those four distinct types, the surprising lifespans, to the nitty gritty of investment analysis.
Yeah, the cash flow, NPV, IRR, all those 10 criteria investors wrestle with.
Exactly. And then how these huge assets actually get paid for equity versus debt, mortgages, builder credits, all those other financing options.
Then shifting to the operational linchpin, the bill of lading, its crucial role, the master's dilemmas, the dirty BLs, the vital role of P&I clubs.
Right. And letters of indemnity. And finally, keeping these giants ship-shape. Repair versus rehabilitation versus maintenance.
And those different strategies. Preventative, the tech-driven predictive, and the less ideal reactive approach. All underpinned by that critical materials management ensuring the parts get there.
It's a testament to the sheer sophistication and scale needed to keep our global supply chains moving, isn't it? Every single step, from the first investment idea to tightening the last bolt in maintenance, requires incredible knowledge and coordination.
It really does. Hopefully, listeners now have a deeper appreciation for just how complex it all is and the expertise involved at every level.
We certainly hope so. A deeper appreciation for the complexities, and maybe for the thousands of people working, often unseen, in the maritime industry, the traders, the captains, the engineers, the logisticians. It touches all our lives constantly. So thinking ahead, with technology racing forward, AI and maintenance, new financing structures, the massive push towards decarbonization and sustainability, how do you think roles like the asset trader or even the traditional master might change in, say, the next 10 years?
Ooh, that's a big question.
What new challenges, what new opportunities are going to emerge as shipping dives deeper into automation, alternative fuels, and ever more complex global regulations? It feels like an industry on the brink of massive change.
A really provocative thought to end on. The industry is facing huge shifts, balancing safety, efficiency, innovation, and sustainability. It's going to demand incredible adaptability from everyone involved. Constant learning, constant evolution.
Absolutely. Well, that's all we have time for on this deep dive. Until next time, keep diving deep into knowledge.